and Hagmann report for today. It is Tuesday, it's June 10th, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear an incredible 3-hour program. This is a program dedicated tonight specifically to in-depth analysis of the current events, what's taking place all around us. We did have a scheduling issue. Stan Dale will not be joining us tonight as scheduled. It's Tuesday without Stan tonight. He had to he sent his apologies, and of course he will not be on the second hour. It's a business. He's got some business to take care of that overlapped the time that he would be on, so that's the deal there. So
that's 3 weeks between our schedule and his schedule.
I know. It's sorry about that, folks, but
the
things
universe is unbalanced right now.
The planets are out of alignment. The universe is not. You're exactly right. But nonetheless, you are listening to the only show where we believe the news is presented to you in 3D. We look beyond the headlines, the bylines, and bring you the news behind the news, which we will do very adeptly tonight, I dare say. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Our home base on the internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight, for deliberately tuning us in. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your belief and your trust in us. It's something that we will not squander. Joe, it's good to be here getting into some of the major news, major headlines. We call this, folks, a target-rich news environment, and that's by design.
A pig slop house of different stories to take your pick from the media theater and political theater, because with for those of them paying attention, we've seen a rise in shootings all of a sudden in the last week or two. You had police shot and killed in Canada. You had the Santa Barbara incident. You have a Las Vegas shooter now who has some interesting background here. He apparently was interviewed by NBC Nightly News on the Bundy situation, and I still haven't really sunk my teeth into any of the research on this Las Vegas thing, so I'm kind of in the dark aside from reading headlines, but we will go through it. And we have economic news, political news, world policy news, and it's all important and, dare I say, dire.
And yeah, you're exactly correct, folks. I've got to tell you, the past the past several shows we've had guests on, and of course last night was Coach Dave Dobenmeyer. Now that's Past the Salt Ministries, ptsalt.com for those wondering where or what his website is. Fantastic show. It's spiritually oriented shows, I believe you would say. If you would classify the last several shows, I think they were really spiritually oriented, and that's by design. Excuse me, it's by design, because what we're headed into, I believe, and Joe, I think I can speak for you, or you can speak for yourself, I guess. What's coming, and we know it's coming. It will be a series of life-changing events, and as I had said briefly at the conference, at Whitestone Remnant Conference, and I believe this is true, so true, even more today. Every day, I'm believing this more and more, that we are, you, the listener, we, the talkers. Each and every one of us has a job assigned to us, a job to do, multiple jobs perhaps. And you're listening to this program for a reason. We're looking, some of us are still looking for that particular job that we've got to do. We're waiting for our instructions, spiritual instructions. And I think that boy, I'll tell you, just go to the Drudge Report. Look at the headlines. Look at Steve Quayle's website. Look at any news aggregating site. And the headlines are enough just to make your head spin between illegal immigration, the Bergdahl situation, the Benghazi situation. I've been talking with many people behind the scenes about Benghazi and about what's going on. And we have, Joe and I together, spent some time going through and determining really what's taking place. And folks, do you get the feeling, and Joe, you can chime in on this as well, do you get the feeling that you have scandal after scandal after scandal, which really are not scandals, they're crimes. But there is a sense to me of people, of incidents, of groups piling on Obama. Now, this is not, I'm not defending Obama at all, but do you get the feeling that Obama is being prepared as a sacrificial lamb in the theater of the media, in the theater of the world view? Do you get the idea that America is becoming, as we had said before, the pariah of nations, exporting inflation, exporting valueless paper, to the point where when the trigger is pulled by the globalists, there will be such hatred and animus toward the United States that it to me it's just going to be incredible. What do you think, Joe?
Well, there's no shortage of that already, the hate toward the U.S., and it's not for no reason at all. And I think that, the president is, doing, he is a placeholder, and he is the face, just as Bush was the face for the Patriot Act and the War on Terror. Obama was brought in to finish, the part of the agenda that is delegated to him. And whether he enjoys or cares, I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know what he really wants or intends, but there, you could say there comes a time when, regardless of what the consequences are, you'll take a stand as a person to make the world better for people, or you won't. And we have not yet to see Obama do that. So it's an agenda that spans beyond a president or a decade. It's been decades, centuries in the planning. And unfortunately, we are living in the worst time of this agenda. And even though it seems terrible right now, just give it a few days, give it a few weeks, give it a few months, because it's going to get worse.
I was trying to unmute my own microphone here. Over the weekend, somebody had sent me, and whoever sent this to me, I want to thank you very much, but somebody had sent me a lecture by G. Edward Griffin. It's titled The Quigley Formula. Now, folks, for those who don't know who Carroll Quigley is a history professor, the author of two books. One is Tragedy and Hope. I think it's a 1378 tome. I've got it on my library shelf. It's a very dry book. I've gone through it. I've read it. It's full of names, places, dates, and it's a hard read. It's a very difficult read, but it has a lot of good information inside the book. And, of course, the second book that he wrote, The Anglo-American Establishment. The books by Carroll Quigley, and I'm just going to lay some groundwork here at the opening of the program, because I think if we look at what G. Edward Griffin had said in his lecture, and his lecture spanned for an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes, I think that we'll all be able to kind of understand, if we look at today's headlines through that particular backdrop, I think we'll understand what is taking place here in the larger sense as we look at the headlines that we're just getting smashed by headlines.
And I think the majority of people do understand, and I think it's something that, maybe people who are new to the alternative media need to get a real grasp on. But there's always learning. No matter how much you understand, there's always learning that can be done. We can always peer further, to the man behind the curtain, behind, what we see at face value. So,
well,
absolutely.
Yeah. And Joe, I'll tell you something. One of the way that Mr. Griffin had laid this out is in a way that is easily digestible, and something that I really didn't hear before or explained in the manner in which he explained this. And when you refer to the Quigley formula, again, he's talking about Professor Carroll Quigley, the mentor, the hero of William Jefferson Clinton. But there was a part of Mr. Griffin's lecture where he talks about Cecil Rhodes. Now, folks, we've talked about Cecil Rhodes before. The Rhodes Scholarship. People who are identified as Rhodes Scholars being, fantastic. I mean, my goodness, talk about the elite of the intellectuals. Well, if you understand who Cecil Rhodes was and what he stood for, Cecil Rhodes, of course, was a very wealthy man. The South African diamond mines. He left 7 wills. As a matter, he was so wealthy, he left 7, or he created 7 wills, and one of those wills created the Rhodes Scholarship Fund. And the other set of wills, well, we don't know exactly or with precision where that money went. But the reason I mention this is Quigley talks about Cecil Rhodes. Quigley talks about, or had talked about, a global government. Even, in fact, a global government that was overt. And the only problem Carroll Quigley had with this covert global government, secret society type, is the fact that it was not overt or out in the open. But one thing that, and I looked this up for myself in Tragedy and Hope, one thing that Quigley did say was every major event since World War I was essentially choreographed. And folks, think about that through the prism. As you look at the headlines today, understand that every major event really is being choreographed. And Rhodes, by the way, felt that the British Empire must rule the world. Now, we've had people, sources like our intelligence source, V, from the financial end of things, talking about one world governments, a single political system and a single economic system. And
a single religious system.
Exactly. And one of the aspects of this that I think we are seeing coming into one of the aspects of this whole world system, this one New World Order, as George Bush calls it, and others have called it, and we're seeing this being done right now on a rather microcosmic scale or at different areas of our government. To control the masses, which is happening today, you control not everybody in the groups, the different groups or different government agencies. You capture the leaders of the groups. For example, and this is why, Joe, you and I, we had talked about this, about the various, why does, for example, the Tea Party in some respects have successes? where you find successes with the Tea Party or other organizations is where you find the lack of central control over the different groups. The different groups, different segments of, we'll say, the Tea Party, or you name the organization. What happens is there's a level of autonomy to each organization, each segment of the larger group. They've got a similar ideology or the same ideology, but you've got this inability of the globalists to control or capture, overtake, overrun the organization. But what's happening here in our government? Everything is being consolidated. Everything is being centralized, which is part of Obamacare. I mean, look at Obamacare. What's behind that? That's a centralization process. That's a consolidation process because it's easier to control the masses by controlling the leaders of the groups. Now, Quigley also talked about the world axis of power shifting from London to New York. Of course, we had in the 40s we had the creation of the United Nations, but the secret societies, or we'll say a secret society, is ruling from behind the scenes, and the as Mr. Griffin pointed out, how Quigley explained things. If you just take a piece of paper and draw 3 circles, a small circle, and then around that another circle, and around that another circle, well, like 3 concentric circles. In the center, of course, as Cecil Rhodes had set this up at the end of the 19th century, you've got the society of the elect, the real leaders. And then on the outer ring, if you have 3 rings, that's the internal ring, the society of the elect. And then the second ring would be the round tables. And then the third ring would consist of front groups. Now, in Europe or the UK, for example, Royal Institute of International Affairs. In the United States, its counterpart would be, well, the CFR and Trilateral Commission.
The Organization for American States also.
Exactly.
All these non-governmental agencies that work in tandem with the international organizations, whether it be international political bodies or international monetary bodies, they are like spider webs interwoven with each other. And their sole purpose of operation is to make sure, the one side is making sure the other side is doing what it's supposed to.
Exactly, and it's interesting how this is playing out. And again, we are right now just being slammed, are we not, by whether it's this illegal immigration and by the overtaxing of our resources by the people coming across, the children especially coming across the border in the South. Joe, I mean, it's tremendous. They're actually shipping children to these, I don't want to say FEMA camps, but these warehouses. This is being done deliberately. This is being done by design. We are being forced, ladies and gentlemen, to look at this and other things, whether it's Bergdahl or immigration or whatever, but we're being forced to look at these headlines.
I want to go back to a clip we played a while ago to give people an idea of the mindset. This is the founder of the Trilateral Commission, Zbigniew Brzezinski, talking about the influence of the media and how it's changed to where they used to be able to control people easier. But this is what he says.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
No, that was, tell me again?
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
and whose daughter is who? Mika, right?
Morning Joe.
Yeah, MSNBC. Now, you can't tell me, or I don't think it would be reasonable to believe that mindset, that family mindset, is the mindset of Mika Brzezinski, as she sits there at MSNBC, is any different than her father's.
Well, no, see, she's trying to control the masses, so her father doesn't have to murder
so hard.
the masses.
Right. Oh, okay. But folks, the reason I'm bringing this all up tonight, and again, Joe and I had gone over this and we discussed this, because what we're seeing is really headline fatigue, are we not? Are we not seeing the fatigue of don't you feel it, ladies and gentlemen? By looking at the headlines, you just don't know where to turn. It's one thing after another, after another, after another. Oh, and just in case you're thinking that Washington or anything inside Washington or the people there are attempting in any way, shape, or form to inform you, it's nothing but lies. Whether I was talking with our intelligence insider W. What's the truth about Bo Bergdahl? And I could believe me, we spoke a long time about this, but he said what I thought was a pretty interesting. He made a very interesting statement. Bo Bergdahl, of course, is the American so-called prisoner of war, where we exchanged not 5, but 10 Taliban and Al-Qaeda members for. Yes, you heard about the 5 more recently.
But, you know...
You didn't hear about the other 5. I just wanted to finish that. The other 5 were done in July of 2013.
You're right, and this is something you picked up on, that there were previous releases of Guantanamo detainees as part of this deal, but the State Department today assured us, and I have an audio clip we'll play whenever you're ready, the 5 detainees won't substantially change the Taliban's order of battle. Also, we have headlines and audio clips.
Play it now if you want, by the way.
Okay, this is the spokeswoman for the State Department.
Weekend Secretary Kerry said it was, quote, a lot of baloney that Guantanamo detainees could return to the battlefield and kill Americans. Is that official State Department policy?
I think it's reflecting what I just said, that when we're talking about the possibility of re-engagement and recidivism, it really is important that we know the facts here about what has happened and what hasn't, and what we've put in place to prevent it from happening. And in a year, these guys will have lived under the obligations that the government of Qatar has assured us they will live under. Look, is there a chance they will return to the battlefield? As Secretary Kerry said, of course. But we believe we substantially mitigated the risk enough. And look, these 5 guys, let's say the worst case scenario, these 5 guys do return. In no way would that substantially change the Taliban's order of battle on the ground. That's just not even logical. And as he said as well, we have many ways to keep tabs on these guys. It's not like we just release them and close our eyes. We have many, many ways to. Of some of those folks in the previous administration that did re-engage, many of them were captured or killed.
It's baloney to think that we could not capture or kill them.
Absolutely. You know the talent the United States military has and how committed they are to protecting us from anyone who wants to do us harm, and I think nobody, including the Taliban, should have any hesitation to know that the United States military finds people who want to hurt the United States and takes them off the battlefield.
Secretary Kerry was not referring to saying it's baloney that these guys could go back and add a propaganda value to the Taliban.
Okay, there you have it. Of course they know and have eyes and ears on where these people are. They now have to know where to send the paychecks to.
Sorry, but yes, you're absolutely correct. So what are we saying here? What's our opening statement for tonight? Our opening statement for tonight.
Well, I have this. Look at we have a precedent. Look what happened in Iraq, Syria, Libya. Al Qaeda has now seized Iraq's third largest city.
That's right.
Terrified residents are fleeing. We have thousands of murders, hundreds of thousands of murders in Syria, in Libya. You have radical Islamic militant groups attacking Christians across the whole destabilized Middle East. And the reason it's destabilized is because we created it this way.
You're exactly correct. And one thing that our opening statement reflects the tenor of tonight's program, which is, again, we're looking at a very target-rich environment for news. And it's almost paralyzing when you look at the not just the subjects, but the different areas where news is being made. Now you just heard about the prisoner transfer, but see, you also heard lies, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we have another audio clip we can play later, but CNN today on their cable network said that the Liberty Movement, the Tea Party movement, the Constitutionalists are more dangerous than Al Qaeda. And
that's part. I'm so glad that we had included this clip in here, or we will play this clip, because here is the larger picture. We have to look at, so we don't become paralyzed or we don't become distracted, because every headline is something different. We will be forever distracted until it's too late.
You know, with this headline, I agree. I think they're right. Not in the sense of killing people, but the Al-Qaeda militant faction was created by our government, is used as a tool of our government. It goes along with the agenda. It's paid to do that. Where the Liberty Movement is anti-globalist agenda. So in a sense, it is more dangerous than Al-Qaeda.
In the eyes of, yes, I believe it is, and it should be, correct? I think so. One of the conversations I had with our intelligence insider, we were talking about, and he used this as an analogy. And folks, if this seems like this is kind of a shotgun approach to the news, we're really getting to a point here, okay, a certain point that I think will tie all of this together. As the program unfolds, you'll see how everything is working as they are planning it to work. But one of the anecdotes that W had reminded me of, he had said this early on in our relationship, and more recently during one of our recent discussions. And folks, think about this. He told me this story about every Sunday where this elderly couple would go into a church and pray, and the grandpa, the older man, would pray, "Oh, please, all of this stuff." He was praying against the cobwebs, the spider webs. Please take away the spider webs of deceit and the spider webs of lies and the spider webs of all of this fraud, and this, on and on and on and on. And every Sunday he'd say the same prayer: the spider webs of deceit, spider webs of fraud. And finally, one Sunday, the elderly woman, his wife, the older grandmother, speaks up and says, "The heck with the spider webs. God, please forget the spider webs. Let's please help us kill the spiders. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at everyone's going after the spider webs. If the spider webs were news stories, our news stories are comparatively so, we're swatting at the spider webs. We're cleaning out the spider webs and not addressing the spiders. And of course, you know how much I like spiders, or dislike spiders. But every lie that's being told by our government, every single statement, every lie, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. It's a step forward. Every lie is ground under your feet, and there's really no stepping back. And at some point, we are being brought collectively to the abyss. So one more step, what do you have? You have a step over the abyss. Every lie is another step forward. And that final step just might be that final, or that abyss that will drive us into hell. That's what we're talking about here. You know, again, going back to the spider webs, did you happen to hear, folks, where and this is a piece of news. Some say, well, they're trying to track down the exact or trying to verify the authenticity of this particular piece of information. George Soros, for example, contributed $2 million to NAMBLA. Did you hear that?
Yeah, somebody mentioned that on our show. And you mean still trying to verify information, like if Osama bin Laden's DNA was legitimate?
Yeah, that's true. But the core point here, what we need to do is we need to take a look at what's behind all of this information. Because once we start getting into the intricacies of the Bergdahl transfer, now we know that there are so many lies intertwined with that. And when you get close enough, it's like trying to hold on to a water balloon. If you remember when you were younger, you played with water balloons, and you know how they're difficult to hold on to. But imagine those water balloons being covered with some sort of slippery substance, Vaseline or something. It's difficult. You're always attempting to grab at the water balloon. You're attempting to go through and dissect the lies.
Right. Well, think about the way they did this, releasing the prisoners. They could have done this under the table, under the excuse of freeing up people who have had their civil liberties eroded. Release these people, and then weeks later say they've rescued this guy. But they didn't. They made it more convoluted. They made it more divisive. They made it so you have to pick a side, one way or the other. And that's what the news is about today. It's not about bringing you information or enlightening you. It's about pitting you against one another while telling you nothing important.
Well, that's correct. That's exactly correct, folks. If you look at the news and how it's structured, and even from CNN to CNBC or MSNBC to even Fox, what we're being set up for is this divisiveness in all aspects of our lives, and people not knowing what the truth is when they believe or when they hear something, whether it's hopefully not necessarily on this program, but when they hear something, there's always that morsel of disbelief or of uncertainty. That's number one. But number two, or perhaps number two should be number one, and that is there is this overt and very dramatic and very intense method or operation to pit one side against the other, whether it's the homosexual community versus the heterosexual community, whether it's Republican versus Democrat, progressive versus conservative. It doesn't matter. You pick look at the headlines, the police versus the civilian in the case of the shooting in Las Vegas, which we'll get into this evening as well, talking about the intricacies there, the things that don't add up in that particular situation. This is not hyperbole. This is not overstatement of theory. This is evident. This is as evident as evidence would be if we are going to bring this to you in a courtroom type setting. You can see this.
Or it could be considered right-wing hate speech, as it's being Chris Matthews' clip today talking about Ted Cruz. He gave a speech about the marriage issue, homosexual marriage, and Chris Matthews went on to call his stance on marriage between a man and a woman as hate speech. And we know that this is happening, that this is coming, but I mean, you're getting to a point where we are called to be tolerant of everything that is evil that this country promotes, except tolerance for good, tolerance for what's right, what's biblically right, what's right that the Lord laid out for us. See, we can have the Declaration of Human Rights given by the UN, the 10 planks of human rights, but they can't be the 10 Commandments because those are evil and hateful. They have to be man-made, man-created. And if they're not, if we do not redefine these systems we live in as man-created, then we are, like evolution, like all these other things that we battle every day for those of us who are Christians and are trying to spread the word about the Lord and His creation and His sacrifice and what He's done for us. But instead we have this vile, angry, hateful opposition. And my dad and I listened to a clip of Mike Malloy the other day, and we played a clip of his a while back. And this guy was on the radio talking about how, and this is his words, he said, God is a loving God, the same God who murdered His own son. And he said it with such evil evil passion. You remember that clip? It was horrific to hear somebody mock the Lord and the free sacrifice of His life that He gave so that all could be saved.
Well, Mike Malloy, the people at MSNBC, and for that matter, the majority of journalists are the facilitators of the government. The government today are enemies of freedom. They're into this collectivism or this consolidation. Again, we are being and this to me, folks, is so important because if you look at the headlines from, we'll say, a week ago today until today, our attentions are being so spread out over such a vast array of topics, and the news is coming at such a rapid rate. Let me just tell you about the target-rich environment, because I think this is important. For example, if Obama is, we'll say, a Manchurian candidate, if Obama is the sorcerer's apprentice, I personally don't believe he's the sorcerer, but I believe he is a sorcerer's apprentice. And I say that perhaps out of context with where I'm going here, but just think about this. if Obama is in fact as evil as Judge Jeannie Pirro had said over the weekend, I don't know. Did you catch that?
Yeah,
okay.
I did. She doesn't hold back.
And if Obama is as described by Michael Savage, and if Obama is as a shill as described by Judge Arpaio, and if the government is involved in, we'll say, the death of the murder of Loretta Fuddy, if the VA scandal, and it's not a scandal, it's a crime, is a test case, shall we say, a beta test for the Affordable Care Act, which I believe it is, and again, we'll get into this during the show. If we look at all of these, if the vets are being killed or allowed to die by not by the hundreds and not by the thousands, but perhaps by tens of thousands across the United States. If Benghazi was really an arms, shipping arms to Syria, the anti-Assad rebels, which, again, everything I've said so far I believe to be true, then what's the bigger picture? Just take those items. What is the bigger picture? Because these are all microcosms. These are all little, again, as it was described to me, remember the bubble, the financial bubble of 2008. Well, as it was described to me, and I'm using W's words here, picture a kind of a foamy bubble where you've got bubbles, you know how, not just one bubble, but a bunch of bubbles stuck to one another, and it's just, they're all just clustered. This is what we're seeing.
And I have
right now
a scriptures here, Matthew 13. You know, as you said, with such diversity and being pulled in a million different directions, our focus. Matthew 13, verse 24, starts talking about the parable of the wheat and the tares. And it says, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which soweth good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, the tares appeared also. The servants of the householder came and said to him, Sir, did thou not sow good seed in the field? From where has it tares? He said unto them, An enemy has done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let them both grow together till the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather together first the tares, bind them in bundles, and burn them, and gather the wheat unto my barn. And in verse 36, it gives explains the parable of the wheats and the tares. It says, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man, the field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil, the harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. And it goes on to say that those who are good will do good, and those who are bad will be evil. But also in Matthew 13, it goes on to say about the parable of the soils, how there are different ways people received the Lord in His Word, and only one of them is the right way. And each and every other example that is given that's the wrong way, it makes an example of how some sprung up in the right direction but were knocked over by the wind. Some were planted wrong and fell by the stony ways. Some were uprooted, and some had the word removed right from their heart, meaning the foundation was not solid. Saying all that to say we need to, above and beyond anything else, make sure our spiritual foundation is solid.
Exactly. And I was thinking about this because I got an email, I think it was late last night or early this morning, saying, why so heavy on the scriptures lately? Why so heavy on the biblical worldview of late? Why not talk about, go back and talk about the intricacies of Bergdahl and that prisoner swap? Why not, do more to talk about these various issues? We do. We will. Tonight we are. But we also, as you said, we've got to have our spirit right, because today we need discernment more than anything else, spiritual discernment, I believe.
And we talked with Coach yesterday. We know that Satan, it says, is like a roaring lion seeking to whose soul he may devour. If our souls are not first and foremost rooted and established in the Lord, then they are vulnerable to being devoured. It's all right to cover these news issues, but we have to make sure our foundation is solid first.
No, I agree, and this is something that once again, I've got a pretty hard head, and I had to be kicking and screaming to look, to the point of seeking the discernment of scriptures when you're looking at the current headlines and worldview. So, because we've been given such a great gift in terms of the Bible, to me, even if you don't consider it, or even if you want to consider it first as a historical kind of an outline for historical moments in time, both previous and yet to come, rather than the I don't want to mess this up when I say this, but if you immerse yourself in the Word, in the Bible, but use it as well to see both before and after, or previous and what's yet to come, then I think you're able to sift through this bulk of all of these headlines with ease, and you can see how Scripture is lining up with things, especially in the Middle East. But more on that later. One of the things,
it should take a burden off people. They should read the news and understand that there is hope out there, that there is a battle that is and will be and already is won. We just have to go through it. And it should make reading these headlines, it should make going through these news stories, it should make living in the world that we live in much easier when we understand who's on our side.
That's right. And another little nugget of information, and once again, this comes from the intelligence insider known as W. Think about this, and this is based in Scripture as well. Every man oppressed by his neighbor. So you're the scriptorian here tonight in this office. Every man oppressed by his neighbor. Isn't this what we're seeing as well take place? We're seeing, at the core point here, what we're seeing is
seeing the framework of this, the true man, neighbor versus neighbor will come to fruition when lives depend on it, when starvation, when warm shelter is more important to you than, what your relationship with your fellow human beings.
Right.
And yes, and we've received emails, and I saw some people in the chat room talking, that people made comments like, well, I didn't think it was Christians that turned on other Christians when all this happens. Yes, it will. There are many people who will call themselves Christians, who go to church on Sundays. When things go bad, they will, divert to their carnal nature and not look to the Lord for protection, and they will do what is beast-like, what is natural.
Yes, and if you look, once again, I'm trying to take the bigger picture and distill this for everybody. because, again, the headlines, and we will get into the specific content here, but I think it's important to really understand that we collectively are under a spell. Now, that might sound like real woo-woo talk, but we are under this mass spell. We are being told, I mean, just look, for example, if you need examples, look at how quickly and how readily and how easily your neighbor, your friends, your coworkers, your family members are blind to things like the Federal Reserve, just for an example, and the fact that in their pockets right now, as in your pockets, you might have a dollar bill or a 5 or a 10 or whatever, but little symbols of the what would you call it? Symbols demonic, of Luciferians, of the Luciferian agenda, the larger picture. For example, in the all-seeing eye and the phoenix, and look at what they stand for, and look at how readily everyone is accepting this or has accepted this as normal. So we are under a larger spell.
And in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, it says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Meaning,
how would you apply that to what's going on today?
Well, we see the way the world is. We see the way the world is going. Good, calling good evil and evil good. Stealing from the poor through their systems of usury, the anger, the hate, the backsliding, the hardening of hearts. And in reading this again, it says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." And that is because we, as people, as humans, as I said before, we have a spiritual nature and we have a carnal nature. Our carnal nature comes natural to us because we're in the flesh. Our spiritual nature is more alien to us because we are not able to access that as much as we want sometimes, or should be able to. What is right in the Lord's eyes will go against what seems right as humans. And when I say that, we can go back to using the example of turning on your neighbor. Some might not think anything of it to turn their neighbor in with a gun if they're going to be providing food for their family for doing so.
And that will, in fact, take place. But I urge, as we come closing to the top of the first hour, I just would urge everyone in this barrage of headlines. Every time you turn around, you're getting smacked with some more news, and it's almost breathtaking. Takes your breath away. As we look at all of the news coming our way, and by the way, we will get into, for example, tonight, the effects of July 1st House Bill or House Resolution 2847, FACTA. We're going to talk about that tonight because that does come into play. We're going to talk about things that others aren't necessarily focused on because they're busy focusing on other things. Yes, we'll talk about Bergdahl and about the interesting things associated with that, about Mr. Hastings and Bergdahl and Brennan and so on and so forth.
And we have some good news. Tonight we will be starting again News in 2 minutes. News in 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Yes, there is so much, on the other side, there's so much good happening that we've been able to really push to get going, and I'm just excited about that. But folks, what we want you to do is we want you to look at all the news and understand that none of us are really thinking big enough, that we are living under this what is commonly called, or what is, you might have heard it called, this Faustian deal, or a deal with the devil, or a pact with the devil. And you can look it up on Wikipedia or some other various whatever.
Sorry, I just passed the
thank you.
Over to there.
Thank you for that.
But
nothing like
Rocco, you're in our prayers, and your family's in our prayers, and we'll be talking with you soon here.
Yeah, good friend. I just was passed a note. A very, 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 very good, close family friend of ours just got news that she had a stroke. Let's all pray for Sue from Buffalo. All right, but folks, please understand that we need to break the spell. And in order to break the spell in which we're under, we have to identify the various things that comprise the spell, and we have to get out from underneath it. Is this the best we can do? Is continue this deal with the devil? Of course not. We have to take all of the news, understand we're not thinking big enough. We have to. I mean, people who are talking about the election season, to me, that's silly talk. Let's not take one single piece of news. Let's look at it through the prism of not only the scripture, but also in a bigger picture, in the bigger objective sort of way. Don't forget, going back to what G. Edward Griffin had discussed and what was set up in the form of the Jesuit structure of things, the fact that there's an inner circle of a society of the elect, the very people that you'll never see. They don't have any necessarily secret handshakes or codes, because they don't have to.
They work on both sides.
They work on all sides, yes. They're at work in the Ukraine. They're at work in the continent of Africa. They're at work here in the United States. They're at work in all aspects of the government.
Their allegiance is not to the Lord. It is to the Pope.
Well, yes, if the religious, okay, yeah, and people might say, well, wait a minute, where'd that come from, the Pope? Well, again, we're talking about on the religious side. We're looking at this one world religion. The Jesuit order is the model that's being used today.
It's an old system.
Yeah, very much. But the round tables would be the next circle, and then the front groups like the CFR in the U.S. and the Royal Institute of International Affairs on the outer concentric circle. That's what we're looking at. And, it's interesting because it's compartmentalized. The people at the outer circle believe that they've got the power. And I said this before, and I think it's worth repeating. The Bilderberg meeting that just finished when we were at the conference. Do you really think decisions were made at the Bilderberg? Were the decisions were the people there merely read into the decisions?
Yeah, I agree with you, because the agenda, the decisions have already been made. The direction has already been laid out. It is catching people up, informing people who are in the need to know which way they're going, or how to continue with the agenda.
Correct.
Because the agenda is established. It's been established, and it will be till the end of time, because it is the God of this world, little g.
Exactly. You're 100% correct. Folks, so that's the groundwork for the various items that we'll be discussing tonight, whether it's FACTA or the House Resolution 2847 that's going to be going into full effect on July 1st of this year, which is going to have ramifications for the dollar. We'll be talking, as the program unfolds, about the immigration or the influx of illegal aliens here on our soil. We'll be talking about
retardation of the mainstream media and trying to lead you in the same way?
Exactly. All of these things we will discuss and more as the program unfolds tonight. This is a live broadcast. It is Tuesday.
We're just going to keep going here with the news, and we will see Stan next week. Starting off this hour, we talked about last hour the recent uptick in gun violence, and every time there is a shooting in the mainstream, notice they don't cover the inner city gang-related murders and the frequency that these acts of gun violence take place with illegal guns and mostly with felons. But they focus on these more media-friendly murders, if there is such a thing, and use this to push their agenda on gun control. Today, Obama praised Australia's gun confiscation method, and we have a clip here of what he said in an interview that he gave. Here it is right here.
People often ask me, how's it been being president, and what are my, what am I proudest of, and what are my biggest disappointments? And I've got 2.5 years left. My biggest frustration so far is the fact that this society has not been willing to take some basic steps to keep guns out of the hands of people who can do just unbelievable damage. We're the only society, we're the only developed country on earth where this happens, and it happens now once a week, and it's a one-day story. There's no place else like this. Our levels of gun violence are off the charts. There's no advanced, developed country on earth that would put up with this. Now, we have a different tradition. We have a Second Amendment. We have historically respected gun rights. I respect gun rights. But the idea that, for example, we couldn't even get a background check bill in to make sure that if you're going to buy a weapon, you have to actually go through a fairly rigorous process so that we know who you are, so you can't just walk up to a store and...
All right, I shut that off. But there you have, the president talking about the horrendous gun crimes that happen almost every day. No, they happen every single day in every city across this country. And whether we have guns or we have knives or we have stones, there will be murder. And you look at the Santa Barbara incident. That was played up to be a huge, shooting, a massacre. Yet half the people that were killed in that incident were killed with a knife. And in this story here, InfoWars and Alex+Jones did a good job of getting this story up. Mainstream media has spent the past few days falsely blaming libertarians, the Second Amendment, for the Las Vegas shooting, but what they failed to report and downplay is the armed citizen who confronted and killed the person carrying out this act.
Well, shot. Did that?
Shot him in the back of the head, killing him almost instantly.
Oh, really? Okay. There were different reports initially, but okay, that's fine. So you had somebody with a concealed carry permit in, I believe it was Walmart, that confronted the...
It says Wilcox, 31, was armed with a concealed weapon and confronted Jared Miller after the Millers entered the Walmart he was shopping at and threatened everyone to leave. Unfortunately, as Wilcox approached Miller, Amanda Miller came from behind and shot him several times, killing Wilcox almost instantly. Oh, I'm sorry. So the person with the gun must have been the one who was killed. But in the Loeffner case, in so many cases...
I mean, I wouldn't brush that off too quickly. The fact of the matter is, just think, I mean, there was an impediment to that act. So who knows what could have happened.
I mean, most of the time in these, you can tell. We hear a lot about programmed shooters, and like you with chemtrails, the programmed shooting and the brainwashing. Right. It was something that took me a while to really understand and understand this fact. And one of the things that is a huge indicator to me is anytime, I would say 95% of the time, these armed shooters are confronted with somebody with a gun, they either give up right away or they kill themselves instantly.
Yeah, and I do think, folks, if you're looking at this and looking a little bit deeper into this, let's just look at the Jared Miller situation. Does anyone find it interesting or non-coincidental, the fact that Jared Miller was at the Bundy Ranch? Now, Jared Miller, of course, is the individual, just to keep our scorecard clean here and the people straight. And Jared Miller and his wife were the ones that went in and shot the two police officers in Cece's Pizza, and then went to the Walmart. But do you find it interesting or not so coincidental, perhaps, that Miller was at the Bundy Ranch and interviewed on live television?
No, I don't, because I've seen people from 9/11 interviewed on Sandy Hook. I've seen people from the Aurora Massacre interviewed at other mass shooting events. And, some of the stories and people that put together these things, it doesn't seem right. They don't look right. But I'll tell you, I can prove it to you. I'll have to find the videos and the research I did not too long back. And it's there. There are the same witnesses, the same people showing up in different areas of the country at different crime scenes.
Okay. Now, I know, and Alex+Jones had done a great job getting into the details of the Millers and such. And one of the questions that he asked that any reasonable person would ask is, how did the Millers afford to buy the expensive firearms? I mean, I would be hard-pressed to go out and to purchase the firearms, whether it be an AR-15 or AK-47 or whatever type of, or body armor. It's not in your normal budget. Now, one can argue, well, perhaps they saved, or a number of things are possible, but why aren't people asking these questions? Why isn't the media asking these questions? Why is everything just so cut and dry? And it's fine. This is how it happened. Yeah, job security. Let's not rock the boat. Now, Amanda Miller, his wife, she didn't have a criminal record. He did. She didn't. She worked, and I find this very interesting as well, reportedly worked as a head seamstress kind of person, or in the fabric department at Hobby Lobby. Now, Hobby Lobby is known as a Christian company. Is that just a little bit? Of course, we're finding that out, and the media is. Al Sharpton and others are pushing little nuggets like this out to really, in my view, neuro-linguistic programming is taking place here to demonize, gun ownership, certain businesses, certain actions. You heard, folks, what Obama said about gun violence, and the seed has been planted. Of course, we can go back decades to what Holder said about brainwashing the American public about gun ownership. Remember that clip we had, Joe, that we played? Of course, about brainwashing.
I can actually upload it here if you want.
Okay, yeah, I think because what we are seeing right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not heard any of this, and we have new listeners that have not heard some of this, we're seeing right now is, in my view, the culmination of events, or the culmination of an agenda, where things will begin to move very rapidly now. And if you're not prepared physically and practically and spiritually, if you're not prepared for what's coming, it's going to take you by surprise. Or, at the very least, it's going to have you at a disadvantage if you're not prepared. Because we are, and I've seen headlines, we're 9 meals away from starvation. We're 2 paychecks or 1 paycheck away from losing everything we have. If you go on websites like Rogue Money or Zero Hedge or V's Rogue Money, Zero Hedge, for example, Tyler Durden and others, if you just grab all of those stories, you'll see that the direness of the headlines. But back to the Millers, there are a lot of questions about what exactly happened, and of course, the phrases "white supremacy," "white supremacist," as the Millers are being depicted. It's interesting that a Gadsden flag was used to allegedly cover one of the bodies of the police officers. I'm not saying this didn't happen. I'm just saying that it's an odd, eclectic mix of things, whereas one is covered with one of the bodies of the police officers is covered with a Gadsden flag, yet they have a Nazi flag or some sort of Nazi type fabric. And I'm being specific or deliberately vague here because the news reports vary, and the actual authenticated police reports are not necessarily readily available. So all of this together, what's the objective here, whether it be this shooting or any other shooting?
Well, I want to hit a headline here. White House, Obama looking to act administratively, unilaterally on guns.
And there it is.
We have Dianne Feinstein introducing new federal bill to confiscate guns if snitches feel unsafe. This from June 7th. And it goes on to say the law would allow anyone at any time to seek a firearm restraining order against an individual to prevent them from purchasing any new firearms, and also to confiscate any already owned firearms. They're so confident that the law is good that states will be bribed into complying through federal grant programs. And Pause for Safety Act is what it's called, would encourage states to take the following steps to help prevent gun violence. 1, ensure families and others can go to court to seek gun violence prevention order to temporarily stop someone close to them who poses a threat to himself, herself, or others from purchasing a firearm. Number 2, to ensure that a court can issue a gun violence prevention warrant that would allow law enforcement to take possession of firearms that are in individuals' possessions if the court determines the individual poses a threat to himself, herself, or others. And last, it will ensure that law enforcement makes full use of all existing local gun databases when assessing a tip, warning, or request from a concerned family member or other close associate.
And what they're doing here, and this is important because they are lowering the standards, I'll say lowering the standards of evidence. They're lowering the bar. For example, if you call the police and you say, look, my neighbor he's got a gun, and I feel threatened by my neighbor.
He looked at me funny when he was cutting the grass today, and
well, yeah, I mean, the bar is being lowered.
I think he's one of those Christians.
Christian extremist. So, but where does this, when we say that we are seeing the end stages of an agenda, why are we saying that? Well, go ahead and play that clip from, I think this was, do we know when this is from? Was this from like 19?
Oh, goodness.
It was in the 80s.
Let me see. Let me bring the actual video back up here. I didn't find it in our database, so I had to reload it. This was from, it's recorded on C-SPAN in 1995.
Okay, 95.
And here's Eric Holder. We must brainwash people about guns.
Right.
We want to have, as part of the gun initiative, though, an informational campaign to really change the hearts and minds of people in Washington, D.C., and in particular our young people. They are saturated in the media and in entertainment, or by the entertainment industry, with violence. And I think too many of our young people, in particular our young men, are fascinated with violence and in particular fascinated with guns. I've also asked the school board to make a part of every day some kind of anti-violence, anti-gun message. Every day, every school, at every level. One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way. And just really brainwash people into thinking about guns. And just really brainwash people into thinking about guns. And just really...
Don't brainwash people on how to behave properly. Don't brainwash people or teach people on the proper way to treat fellow human beings. You said you were going to take this to the economy. Instead of removing a deadly instrument from somebody's hand, teach them how to treat each other first, and then that instrument, wouldn't be used so frequently for such violence. But we're in that time.
Well, look, that clip that you heard was nearly 20 years ago. So, folks, just think about it this way. How long? They've had 2 decades, or Holder has had 2 decades to hone and refine that particular objective to where it stands today.
Along with multiple false flag attacks that promote the agenda and make it look like they were right all along. The anti or pro-constitutionalist, veteran, Tea Partier, freedom-loving terrorists. Okay,
and that's okay. So we're looking at really a whole host of headlines that involve gun violence, and then you've got Obama stating, hey, gun confiscation, and the promise to handle this by administrative action. Now, once again, if those people are just waking up to this, and there are many who are just realizing that this is the this is kind of the, as I alluded to before, every step is a lie, ground under our feet, and the next step, could very well be the abyss. But so why are they doing this? For example, why are they attempting to disarm our population? And folks, by the way, they will in fact disarm our population, or at least try. They will, through all means available. And that includes shorting the ammunition, making sure that it's difficult to get ammunition, so all you have in your gun safe is a museum piece because you can't shoot it.
And I believe that they'll not do this in the way we think, going house to house, confiscating every gun that they know where it is. I think the vast majority of gun owners will hand their guns in instead of possibly being labeled a extremist or a terrorist or having to face the consequences of a indefinite detention without representation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because ladies and gentlemen listening to this today, and I know we have police officers listening, met some great police officers in Montana, a number of them, as well as Ohio when we were there, in Orlando. Met some wonderful police officers who have who know what's going on. But I'm asking the listener out there, you the listener, if you are a gun owner, and let's just say, well, look what happened in New England, in the New England states, and what was it, Connecticut, I believe, or was it Massachusetts? One of the two.
Sandy Hook.
No, the where they
the assault,
the line of men and
Connecticut, yeah.
Connecticut, okay.
I mean, we're gun owners. I don't ever want to have to use my gun unless I need to get something to eat, and I have to kill it. That would be the only time in my life I would ever want or have to use my gun. There's no other. And they make it seem like gun owners are trigger happy out in their front yard, instead of 4th of July fireworks, firing off their guns and, running around. They make open carry protest seem like some kind of half-armed revolution tactic.
Correct.
They're just marginalizing every aspect of guns, gun safety, and awareness of guns and gun rights.
You're 100% correct. And the depiction and all of this, if, as I said before, you've got to look at the big picture, because if you don't look at the big picture, you're going to be missing out on what we're talking about here. The big picture is really the way to understand all of these events, all of these executive orders, all of these initiatives, all of these commercials on television, the use of Hollywood, the use of Hollywood's movies and television programs. This all is one big initiative going back to that inner nugget circle, the people that control everything. And you're even seeing this, if you know, and our audiences, and I've said this, and I truly believe this with all of my heart, our audience is perhaps, or is the most informed audience of all radio audiences out there. And I'm not saying this gratuitously. I'm saying this, and I mean this, because you folks understand, you make it a point to go out and research things and see where things are going. But they're doing this for a larger purpose. And one of the other things that go hand in hand with this anti-Second Amendment initiative is the anti-First Amendment initiative. But part of this as well that we can see today, when it's really going to become personal for every one of us, is the economy. And at the epicenter of all of the things we're seeing right now is the economy. Folks, they're talking about right now, the European Central Bank cut its deposit rate for banks from 0, are you ready for this, to minus 0.1%. It's a negative interest rate, meaning that the depositors are being charged to put your money in the bank. Where's the incentive there to keep your money in the bank or your currency in the bank?
What do you mean? You don't like to pay for cashing checks? You don't like to pay for depositing money, withdrawing money? You don't like the ATM fees? You don't?
Okay.
I mean, this is how they make their money, on top of all the shady business deals they do in the back rooms and with these people. It is, as you said, and what would be the purposes? Is it to destabilize the economy through, having people pull money out of the banking systems?
Well, no. We are now seeing, folks, the end of the Ponzi scheme, because I don't know how else to describe it. You still have the fictitious tapering of QE. It's not a tapering of the quantitative easing. It's still going on. Old Yellen, not old, that of course is a play off Old Yeller, but Old Yellen, and with my apologies to Old Yeller, but Old Yellen is Keynesian through and through, and the Keynesian system is still Keynesian economics. Folks, please understand what that is. Keynesian economics is at the heart of what we're seeing. It's been at the heart of our federal monetary system now for well over 100 years. We are looking at a system now where we will wake up on a Monday morning after going to bed on a Friday night, or something similar to this, where the entire landscape, the economic landscape, is going to change. And while I'm at this, I'll go ahead.
Just an example, how I read from Matthew 13 and talked about how the word can be taken away from you if your foundation is not rooted properly. how many different ways and quickly that can be taken away. Well, the foundation for the U.S. dollar was the gold standard. So now it's been taken away. And, I saw these little fact sheets, I think on Facebook today. My friend showed me this pro-Obama post where it said, went back and got all the jobs back that was lost since the recession. Somehow they twist it and say they cut the national debt in half, or the spending of the national debt in half. All these, good stock markets on an all-time high. And even my friend understood, and he's doesn't really pay attention too much, but he knows about quantitative easing, and he said, well, yeah, of course the stock market's going to go up. Gas when Bush left office was around $2, and it's almost double that now. Of course, the prices of everything are double now. It's because nothing went up in value. It's just the value of the money was decreased. And the example he gave is one I like to use is Canada. When 10, 11 years ago, when we used to go to Canada, you take $100 American, you get $200 Canadian. Now I think Canadian money is worth a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not exactly certain what the exchange rate is between the Canadian and U.S. dollar, but regardless, it's all fiat currency. It's all built on nothing really. We're looking at the petrodollar system being taken away. But I just want to kind of really get into the economy just a little bit, because there's a headline, folks, that you haven't heard. And it's important for us to talk about. In fact, this is blowback from Benghazi. Now, you might think, what does Benghazi have to do with anything? Well, remember, folks, the entirety of the Arab Spring. In the bigger scheme of things, we have it. In fact, I put it on our website. Under the Benghazi articles, one of the articles where I had pulled out the emails from Great Britain, or between Great Britain and France, where they were talking about engaging in something in Syria. So all of this, the Arab Spring, was not a spontaneous uprising beginning in Tunisia, although one might argue Tunisia was unplanned. It nonetheless began the Arab Spring. Okay, now, having said that, if you look at what is taking place in Ukraine, in Crimea, with Russia right now, with Putin, and how Obama and Putin are seemingly going after each other, or enemies against one another, this is all stagecraft. This is our illusion, I should say. This is all for our benefit, for the benefit of the masses, to be entertained or to be scared, when in fact this has all been choreographed. As we look at the possibility of waking up on a Monday morning or someday and seeing that we're going to have to pay to keep money in the bank, we are going to start to see things not work properly. And this is how I believe, personally, it's going to begin. It's not going to begin necessarily with a shock and awe campaign, a big blast, and bam, we're in the soup. No. It could be. I'm not going to discount that. But things will begin to unravel a little bit. Did you ever drive a car with the lug nuts on your tires? You get your brakes looked at, or get your car inspected, and they don't quite tighten the lug nuts on your wheels, and you're going down the road, and all of a sudden you hear the front end start to vibrate. Yeah,
I seem to remember you getting a tire in your vehicle fixed, and I took it for a few days, and I had the very same issue.
Yeah, well, I was the one that loosened up the lug nuts, not them. But no, I'm just kidding about that. But see, that's what it's going to be like. Things are going to stop working properly. You're going to have disruptions in supplies. You're going to have, and there are going to be three major areas of concern, or three major flashpoints. at the ATM machines and or the banks, at the gas stations, when your card doesn't work properly or there's a disruption in supply of gasoline, and there will be. And the third place of disruption will be at the grocery stores. Okay? So you've got three places of disruption: gas stations, the banks and ATMs, and at the grocery stores. You're going to have supply disruptions based on the economic fallout from the foreign policy, which is tied into all of this, including and especially Syria. Now, the headline that you have not heard that is extremely important is that Iran and Turkey meet amid massive sanctions-busting schemes. This is the first meeting between the Iranian president and Turkey in nearly 20 years.
Yeah, you have Turkey, which is a Republican form of government, and you have Iran, which is pretty much a monarchy or an authoritarian dictatorship. We know that the Turkish nation plays a key role in Bible prophecy. It is what I would call, why you see all these nations in the Middle East and all being uprooted, their governments uprooted, their populations uprooted, yet Turkey and very few others are stable.
Correct.
There's a reason for that.
And scripturally and historically, and even with current event. I mean, we are seeing the prophetic, I believe anyway, this is my belief, we're seeing prophecy being slowly or being fulfilled, or the stage being set for prophecy to be fulfilled, regardless of how you want to look at it. But the fact of the matter is, the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, was in Turkey, or is in Turkey, I should say, this week for the first official high-level meeting in, like 20 years. The two nations are growing closer. I'm talking about Iran and Turkey now, as a means to offset the United States' power in the region. That's part of it. And further solidify a deal that is intending to circumvent United States sanctions against Iran or their nuclear program.
Haven't we gotten rid of those pesky sanctions? Hasn't the administration bent over backwards to make sure that they can push Iran in the right direction to either be a target or to be a threat? And
yes.
And for those of you who might have missed it last week, one of the shows I announced a headline that I didn't hear anywhere else on any other mainstream or alternative news site. Assad won the Syrian election with 88-point-some% of the vote. But
with the people that are left there to vote, just look at the refugees coming out of Syria.
I didn't see the demographics, but I can imagine. But I mean, still, with all that turmoil, why would they reelect somebody who they would see as the brunt or the reason behind that?
Exactly, meaning that they're more informed than Americans are, or they're more informed than Americans. The American news media is.
Or it was rigged.
Americans. Well, probably both. But the fact of the matter is, you're correct in saying that Assad is there, and he's not a good guy. And by the way, I'm going to just kind of take a left turn here for a moment. When we talk about Putin, for example, and Putin riding in on a horse and being stronger in appearance than Obama, and we talk about Putin's how he's running his country.
Oh, and
we are not. Well, let me just say this: we are not glorifying or intending to glorify Putin. I don't want people to think that.
No, but did you guys, anybody see the leaked video of the workout tape of Obama in Poland?
I missed that. I don't look workout tapes of.
I mean, if they, not to make fun of Obama here, but and as you said, they show Putin, swimming in frozen lake almost, riding horses, playing hockey. They released a video of Obama with 5-pound dumbbells in each hand, jiggling around a little bit and seeming though it was some kind of workout, almost like it was made to look. He was made to look weak physically. Now, if that's how he works out, that's fine. I'm not judging him, but just the appearance of what was put out in that footage made him look weak. And I don't know if they do this to make the American people feel sympathetic toward Putin, which all world leaders are puppets.
To Putin or sympathetic
to Putin, or to maybe garner favor for Putin from the American disenfranchised, politically.
I see.
But either way, all the rulers are all the same. They're all just puppets on a different.
Right. We go
from
back
a different
to the
puppet master.
All right. We go back to the society of the elect, the inner circle, and then the round tables of the second circle, and then of course the third being the front groups. And the inner circle is the actual powerhouse, the engine behind what's really taking place. But going back to what's going on with Turkey and Iran, this cannot be overstated enough, because this is sufficient to change things. There's a meeting between Rouhani and Erdogan. The Turkish Foreign Ministry, as Rouhani and Erdogan are meeting, the Turkish Foreign Ministry Undersecretary is in Washington right now for meetings with the United States State Department and the White House National Security Council. Okay, the meetings there are going to supposedly focus on the Syrian civil war. And folks, it's not a civil war. It's a war caused by Western intelligence agencies, not from within, but from without. Please understand that. Turkey, by the way, has been implicated publicly by Washington and by the West in multiple schemes that are designed to circumvent sanctions that have helped Iran. And, of course, the two nations have now, based on the most recent reports, have signed 10 new agreements since the meetings began. The 10 cooperation pacts between Iran and Turkey. There's some fluff in here, or in these agreements. The joint film production agreements on cultural, scientific, and educational exchanges and tourism. But what at the heart of this trade between the two nations, what is taking place, whether it's, and again, this is important because you're seeing Turkey, a NATO member, now because of what has taken place in Syria and because of Benghazi. Look at the bigger picture, folks, being pushed into the arms of Russia. You see the bigger picture. And what does Russia want to do because of our actions in Benghazi? And I would urge everyone to read, I keep saying this, Michael Reagan, his piece, Building on a Kernel of Truth. That can be found at the American Thinker. I think it's September, October of 2012, right after the 9/11 attack, that explains Benghazi and explains the certain elements of Benghazi in a very succinct manner. And, of course, I've written almost 4 dozen articles myself on Benghazi. They're available at HomelandSecurityUS.com. But you see the bigger picture here is Russia is coming at us economically. The trade sanctions against Iran, Turkey is really following Putin's guidance to circumvent our sanctions and helping Iran. The think of this as musical chairs. When the music stops, the United States is going to be the one left without a chair.
What better way to disrupt the U.S. economy by taking over the means that our dollar is used as a world reserve currency? Say Russia gains control of the oil in the Middle East. They have the power to change the world economically and rid the world of the U.S. toxic treasury note.
And therein lies another very important point. We are being set up. The dollar is being set up to be the bane of the world economy. When everything is all said and done, the United States is going to be made to look like the bad guy. And really, we're on the wrong side of everything at the moment. But you've got all of these alliances being set up, the Pigs Nation, the Portugal, Greece, South Africa. You've got the BRICS nations. They're all
India, cashless.
Thank you. Yes, they're all cutting out trade with the U.S. dollar. People are saying, well, the economy today is much better than it was. You hear this on MSNBC. You hear this on Fox. You hear this on your favorite talk show on the AM dial, perhaps Limbaugh, Hannity, whatever. The economy seems to be getting a little bit stronger. Well, there's a little thing called money and the velocity of money, and without getting too deep into this, you've got dollars coming back into the United States, because who wants the dollars? Who wants the fiat currency? So
it would do people good to study the Weimar Republic and the amount of money they had at the end of that regime to get an idea of what we'll have here.
Point. That's an excellent point. And speaking with V, the guerrilla economist, some people say, well, there could be a devaluation of the dollar. No. We're going to see hyperinflation. And as I mentioned earlier, the 3 flashpoints, please, folks, prepare yourself, because this can happen rather quickly. Although the run-up to this, which we are in right now, people have asked me, when do you think this is going to happen? Well, it's happening. It's happening right now. You've got the potential. And when the final trigger is pulled, when everything does come apart, the wheels do finally fall off as the lug nuts fly off, you're going to have supply disruptions at the grocery store. You won't get fresh fruit and fresh food. You won't be able to go down to, if you live in the Northeast, Wegmans at their fresh food bar, or if you live.
No, you'd be lucky to be like Venezuela. They stand in line for 3 hours to get a government allotted amount of food each week, so people cannot stockpile. That would be if we were lucky.
Now, think about what Joe said too about the guns, about the weapons. Would you trade a box of shells or a box of ammunition for a pot roast or a chicken?
Does that ammunition go to my weapon, or is it extra ammunition I have laying around?
Yeah.
We're going to be seeing a way, our minds, as W said, we're going to have to conform our minds into a new way of looking at monetary assets and what their worth is versus food, toilet paper, the essentials, versus metals, versus things necessities.
And I'm of the opinion too, and this is another thing as well. People are talking, well, my goodness, gold and silver. How in the world can it be so low? For example, silver, I think, $19 and change, or something to that effect. If you want to, let's say you want to go buy an American Silver Eagle coin here, at least around this area, and I made some calls, and you're looking at a $23 investment for a silver coin. one of the things, talking with the owners of American Survival Wholesale, one of the packages that they've put together, and are putting together, I should say, are going to include pre-1964 silver in your bag, along with your food. Because we're going to be looking at an entirely different system of barter and existence. I don't know how else to describe it. And it would be a little bit difficult. I don't object to people having like 10-ounce gold bars or a gold coin or gold coins, but how do you deal? What's the practical aspect of dealing on the street, at the street level, when the economic system collapses and whatever you might have had in the bank is either inaccessible or gone completely? What do you use for money? Well, something that's recognizable, like pre-1964 coins. That a dime today that's 90% silver. People call it junk silver. Perhaps you've heard the term. It was worth about $1, I believe, or close to it. It's recognizable to others. It's not readily. You're not going to be seeing counterfeit pre-1964 dimes, as you would perhaps the potential for a gold bar. And if you had a gold bar, how would you? I mean, folks, just think about this. What's the practical aspect of trade? So all of this is tied together. The foreign policy, the headlines in Benghazi, and this is why, again, going back to the bigger picture, this is all designed. At the end of the day, it's all about money. It's all about our economic system. I shouldn't say money. It's all about our economic system and the push for a global currency. There's going to be steps in there. You're not going to wake up and all of a sudden there's going to be a system of global currency. And we'll get more on this from the guerrilla economist perhaps later this week, because there are so many things happening so quickly with respect to the currency. It's just important to really understand. So all of this combined, this is not going to be a cosmic accident, as we have discussed before. This has been long in the planning, and you've got the foreign aspect with the domestic unrest, the shootings, the lack of trust. Think about Bergdahl now. How does that fit into all of this? Well, I mean, can you see that the purge that started under Clinton in earnest has been continued and was continued by Bush, has accelerated under Obama, the purge of our military, to the point where the Bergdahl trades, or the trade for somebody like Bergdahl, for 5 Taliban officers, is accepted without a necessary objection.
In the first round of the Taliban, they take Abdullah.
Kind of like a draft pick, I suppose.
The U.S. traded the next 4 picks for the captured or deserted soldier. See you next year at the Guantanamo draft. I mean, really, it's mind-boggling. And it goes back to, like I said earlier, with the foundation, with what is good and what is true. We know what the Lord and His Word is true. We know that that's the foundation we need to build ourself and our mind, our spirit on, and not to be ignorant of the devil's devices. We need to pay attention to what's going on, but we also have to understand that there is, if we were as apathetic to the current events as many Christians are to the Bible, I think the mainstream media would have to change their tune.
Good point. Very good point. I know we're getting up against the top of the hour. Let me just read an email I got here from Michael. It reads this: Doug and Joe, blessings on your recent fast. Could you talk a little bit about your experience fasting? We are engaged in the Million Man Fast, which means that our consumption. No, I don't.
I got to be honest. I didn't do the whole 8th through the 11th.
All right. Well, I'm in the midst of it, and my consumption is water. And let me tell you, I've got a massive headache from the caffeine, or lack thereof. But the fact of the matter is, you combine fasting and prayer. You know, folks, we can change things through fasting and prayer. Michael, I don't know if that answers your question. I mean, a little bit about our experience. It's really kind of a personal experience to each one of us and how we handle it. But collectively, the Million Man Fast, I believe, is, you're not hearing much about it necessarily. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing. Yeah.
We're not supposed to, we can share what our experience is, what the Lord has showed us or revealed to us from our fast, but we're not supposed to. There's scriptures in the Bible that says the Pharisees will make their face look bad and tired and walk around as though they are fasting to get, like the people who pray out loud in street corners on purpose just to get the attention. And, it says that when you are fasting, you're supposed to not show
private
that you're, doing this.
Sorry, I interrupted you again. Joanne, thank you for writing in from Vancouver Island. Writes, howdy, Doug and Joe. And when I mentioned earlier about an email I got, she writes that anyone that questions why our program would focus on Scripture and spiritual enlightenment needs to check their heart and their relationship with Jesus, of course. And I agree with you, Joanne, absolutely. And she also writes this, and folks, if you're having trouble with this, we'll do what we can to assist. She writes that she's been part of the Million Man Fast, prayer, Esther Fast, and prayer phone calls. Sheila asks that we send her. Sheila asks that we send to Sheila our email address and name. Now, apparently, Joanne's done this or attempted to do this 3 different times and has been unable to access her email address. So we'll forward this email to her. So the bottom line here is there are so many people that are engaged in this. Folks, we can change. I'm not going to say we can change the outcome. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe that the outcome is what it is. We can't change prophecy, but certainly we can do things that will, for our own spiritual and we can delay things.
Yeah, and I want to say, as far as fasting is concerned, I'm a complete rookie. When we were in Orlando,
me too. By the way,
a lady came up to us and gave us each a book, and it was she authored it, and it was on fasting. And I've been reading that book leading up to the Million Man Fast, and it's something that I want to do more in my life. But there's some guidelines. We're not supposed to do it just to do it. We are to do it for a reason. We're to do it when we're led by the Holy Spirit to do it. And,
that's right.
And you can't. Don't try to overdo it.
And I equate this to what we did the 5 weeks of Sunday programs with Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle in the run to Syria. I really believe that the prayers that were amassed by the number of people who listened to those programs, I believe that we had at least a small hand in changing or at least delaying the events of Syria with respect to Syria. Because remember, at that time, they were ready to close the airspace over the northern part of Syria and NATO and what have you, and really start the bombs a-flying. But I believe that in some small way that we played a part in postponing that. They're still going after Syria right as we speak today. They're going after Syria, and on the other side of the break, we'll talk about Hillary Clinton and what's going on, the 34 pages that she wrote about Syria, and the lies, of course, and other things. We'll also talk about Brennan Hastings and Bergdahl. Other things coming up on the other side, and your calls as well. Folks, this is a live broadcast on
the Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, June 10th, 2014. We're going to be taking your phone calls this hour at 661-244-9839. We're also going to hit a little bit of news, too, while we take your phone calls. Now, during the break, the last clip I played was a clip from CNN saying Liberty, the movement, is more threatening than Al-Qaeda. And it says, formerly under the control of the Army's 4th Psychological Operations Group, he has jumped on the shooting in Las Vegas to kickstart the right-wing extremist MAME. The narrative has languished since the Department of Homeland Security backed off characterizing Americans who disagree with establishment as domestic terrorists. The attack in Vegas is far from the only incident of violence by the American far right, writes Peter Bergen. That was the man you heard in the clip, saying that the right-wing extremists have killed, far more people than Al-Qaeda has since 9/11. And if you notice there at the end, he said, Al-Qaeda doesn't have the capabilities to pull off a 9/11. We got to be more focused on these right-wing extremist groups. Well, I have, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's the way that they count these right-wing extremist murderers like they do the unemployment numbers or the inflation rate. Leaving out the food and fuel prices when calculating inflation, or leaving out the people who aren't looking for work anymore when calculating what world do they live in? Yes, there have been a few isolated incidents of people shooting each other, and whether their ties to right-wing or left-wing are still debatable, as there's no proven fact. They go and find the information these shooters look at, and they could have a whole TiVo full of MSNBC news. I'll tell you, if they have one website hit to a Drudge Report, well, then they're right-wing. It's all skewed and convoluted. I don't know of any true Christian patriot that wants to do violence, let alone has done violence. And it's just the propaganda machine is working overtime, and it's muddled the water so much that the only truth that we can be certain of is the truth from the Holy Spirit, and those people that try to bring out the truth. But even as in the conference, they said, men are fallible. Don't look to men. Look to the Lord.
Absolutely. And folks understand, we are undergoing this demonization process, both as specific groups of people, that being Christians, conservatives, whether you own a gun or whether, if you own a gun, if you're anti-abortion or pro-life, either one, any of these particular attributes will, in fact, put you in the crosshairs of the people in power today, the government in power today. By the way, the quote of the day, we should start doing this, quote of the day by Patrick Henry. The liberties of a people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. And of course, that means those who conduct, the people in power who conduct things in secret. Well, you are not going to, of course, we're never going to have freedom. The Cloward, one more thing real quick, and then I'll turn it back over to you. What we're seeing, folks, in very simple terms, at the border, the illegal immigrants, the masses of children, well, we're seeing Cloward Piven in action at the border. Of course, back in the 60s, don't forget, Marxists Richard Cloward and his wife, Frances Fox Piven, came up with a superior strategy for overloading and collapsing democratic welfare states, paving the way for socialist tyranny. Oh, and by the way, while I'm thinking of it, fascism, the word fascism, people always equate that with right-wing extremism. There is liberal fascism, just to throw that in there.
Yeah, but Nazism, socialism, same thing. You have these different governmental control mechanisms, whether it's totalitarianism, whether it's a monarchy, it's tyrants, it's all the same. It's centralized power under different disguises, I guess you'd say.
Well, the thing I find interesting with this, with what's going on at the border, remember Cloward and Piven. If you're not familiar with Cloward and Piven strategy, please do some homework on that. But they were specifically focused on replacing welfare programs with a government-guaranteed annual income for everybody. Well, has anything changed from this? No, of course not.
It's only gotten more effective.
Right. The basic idea of overloading this republic and replacing it with a centrally planned tyranny. Look, it can be applied in many different ways. Just take a look at what's going on right now at our southern border. It's now on the front pages of every newspaper, or most newspapers. Leaked photos of illegal aliens, their children, many of them 12 and under, warehoused in these overcrowded, cramped, and in some cases pretty disgusting facilities, where there are growing concerns about the sanitation of those facilities and outbreaks of diseases. Kids sleeping on plastic boards in Arizona, in the Nogales, Arizona warehouse. They were flown in from South Texas. What are we doing here? What's going on? Obama, look, there's no secret. Obama invited these people to send their children to the United States as refugees.
Have you ever read the White House list of visitors? I did this not too long ago, and you'd be amazed at the amount of Middle Eastern influences from Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, these groups.
Well, Hamas is an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood has really effectively captured our White House.
I mean, we had Anwar al-Awlaki, suspected in the 9/11 plot, ate dinner at the Pentagon after it happened, then was killed by a drone with his son and his friend in the rural streets of Afghanistan, or rural mountains of Afghanistan. It's like a rotating door of, terrorists, rulers of militant Islamic groups, and what are we doing? We've given them weapons, tanks, jets, money, everything.
Right.
It's crazy. Right. And then what are they doing? They've turned around, and as we stated at the beginning of the show, Al-Qaeda has seized Iraq's third largest city. Terrified residents are fleeing. There is a mass execution of Christians that is taking place, and this is from our liberation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Now, but the border situation. Look, this is not just Obama inviting these people to come up because they're not going to be turned away. And they could be stopped by the Mexican government. They're not doing anything to stop the amnesty seekers, I suppose, or those people young people who will receive amnesty. They're not doing anything to stop that. look at the bigger picture of Amero, or when I say Amero, the North American Union, that is to say, Mexico, America, and Canada. Is this not part of the larger picture of creating destroying our American sovereignty and making us part of a amalgamated type of society that includes Mexicans? And Mexico doesn't want to necessarily, the average Mexican doesn't want to merge with America necessarily, or vice versa, or especially vice versa. And certainly Canada, they want to maintain their sovereignty as well. Yet the globalists are doing this. This is all part of a larger plan. But where are you hearing about this? Oh, you're seeing the pictures of the children. You're seeing the pictures of this humanitarian crisis. But who's causing this? It's not just Obama. It's everybody, almost everybody, in a leadership position in our government. Folks, please.
Foreign governments as well.
Foreign governments as well. This is, people, and I've seen so many articles on this and read so much about this, but how many actually talk about the big picture? What's really going on here? Is this just like what happened in the 70s with the boat people? No. This is a much larger and a much more deliberate strategy. And you know what, Chris Matthews and others, you go ahead and call us haters. Is that your answer for everything? If we choose not to, racist, bigots, haters?
A little diversity there.
What's that? I
said it's racist too, not just haters. I said there's a little diversity.
Yeah.
Quacks. There's a few words in his vocabulary.
But see, you, Chris Matthews, you, Rachel Maddow, and it's just not on the left. Let's go to the right. You, Mr. Limbaugh, and Mr. Hannity, for as much perhaps good as you do for your masters, your handlers, your parties, well, you're serving the globalist agenda.
Yeah, at least
willingly or unwittingly.
The quacks or the whatever you want to call them, at least they stand up for something. At least they don't just get paid to read what's put in front of them. At least the quacks have the original thought or viewpoint differing from, because it's always the same. Every time a story comes out, with the Bergdahl case, for example, you have your two sides. You have the right and the left, and then you have each person from each side making sure they're falling in line with the rest of their cohorts. And they may have a few differing opinions here, but the overall attitude is the same. There is no original thinking or critical thinking. It's follow the leader and see how many times we can spin this point of view to make it sound different from somebody else's.
Interesting how you phrase that. I do like that. How you brought that around. That's very true. Look, the bottom line here is, once again, going back to the opening statement, if you will, and folks, consider this program tonight, Tuesday, to be kind of a prep for Wednesday's, tomorrow night's program, because the depth in which we are going to be addressing these various aspects as they relate to the larger picture is going to be a little bit more in detail. But we're setting the stage. We're laying the groundwork. We could do a 6-hour program tonight, and it just wouldn't. So obviously, we'll talk more in detail about this because, for example, the Bergdahl situation needs to be discussed in the context of the globalist agenda and how this is being played off by the globalists for the various aspects of taking out the demoralizing and also neutering, if you will, the United States military. There's a huge story built into this that no one has touched at all that we'll get into, and more on the economy. But let's go to the phones. You've been waiting patiently for your... Thank you so much for waiting so patiently. If we can do this, if when we do come to you, if we can make this kind of a standard type of process, when we come to you, we say your area code. Just make sure your device is ready, whatever you're using.
After we say your area code, you should hear a sound that says unmuted.
Or even, depending on how you're calling, or a whoosh type sound. And just turn off the background noise, and let's get right to it. And if we can, limit it to just a few minutes, be concise, and we can get as many calls in as possible. 661-244-9839.
All right, we're going to go in order from how long people have been on hold, and we're going to start with area code 856. 856, we're coming to you now. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug. Joe, it's Sheila.
Good evening, Sheila.
Hi. Glad you guys are back. Help me out here. You were just talking about the Arab Spring.
Yep.
And how these governments are being overthrown over there. I was thinking the reason why that was going on was to put people in these presidential positions where they're accepting of the New World Order.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's correct. There's two parts to this. The Islamic Caliphate that will be used as a tool to soften up, to fertilize the globalist government, and then, of course, the looting, the plundering and pillaging of the country's assets and resources.
Example, Gaddafi wanted to nationalize his oil. Saddam Hussein started his own currency. These people did things that were out of the agenda framework, and they were dealt with.
Well, I've noticed over in Brazil, Venezuela, all these countries, they have come out and said that the United States is behind us because they're running out our CIA, that they're coming into these countries and creating trouble. I mean, that pretty much says a lot right there.
Well, the American or the Western intelligence agencies are working in conjunction with each other to uplift the globalist agenda that includes having the UK, Great Britain, the City of London oversee the political and the economic factions. You've got the Rome to oversee the globalist religion, and of course the power center, militarily speaking, perhaps out of the United States or this particular region. But the goal is for 10 regions, just like the 10 horns, right?
The 10 toes on the German Nebuchadnezzar, the 10 kingdoms, yes.
10 kingdoms, thank you.
There's 10 horns and then 10 crowns on top of the horns. And the United States, Canada, and Mexico is one of the regions.
Correct. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And I believe, Sheila, and I'll go out on a limb here and say this, I truly believe that the ultimate ruler of these 10 kingdoms is already walking around in the City of London.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Well, yeah, the kingdoms will give power to the beast. So, are you saying that the kingdoms have given their power over?
I'm saying that you're going to find that the Antichrist, with a capital A, ultimately, the Antichrist is alive and well and walking around right now in the City of London.
He's going to step up, and he's going to calm everything down, get these countries all back in order, fix the financial system. That'll be the beginning. That's why he comes on the scene. But then we know what that turns to.
Sheila, you just said something really important, I think. Imagine this. Imagine the world looking at Obama and saying, my goodness, you really screwed things up. Or looking at America and saying, how poorly you've handled things and look at what you've done. We are now the pariah. So we are going to step in, or I will step in, that being the son of perdition, and and bailing the world out and looking as if person is the Messiah or Savior of the world.
Exactly. I don't see him being the one. I'd have to see in that tape yesterday with him lifting weights.
That was an interesting video, wasn't it, Sheila?
You know what? I looked at that, and he was being compared to Putin. Doesn't he have some tigers, too? Putin? I know he's... I saw him on the
I don't know.
All right, well, he was... I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's got 2 tigers, and he's got his horse and his bare chest. And then, but I wasn't making a connection there, and I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking, he was a skinny guy trying to lift the weights. And then he turned in such a way where I recognized it was Obama. Well, he needs to stay out of the gym because it ain't working.
Well, again, this is all and they're looking, the people in power. Sheila, I also believe that Obama is going to be the sacrificial lamb, if you will, is being made to be the sacrificial lamb. And if you think about it, how much sense would that make? As I said before, you talk about chaos and other things, too, that would happen in a case like that, whether it be through impeachment or other means. My goodness.
Well, he's been responsible for setting the world on fire, that's for sure.
It's all by design.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's being used. There's no doubt he's being used by God to do what he's doing, you know. But
yes.
It's very interesting. I hang firm on one thing Steve Quayle said here quite a ways back, and that's putting olive oil on our door frames and our windows to keep the evil out. You know, we're
going to have Pastor John Kyle on Thursday, and this is not going to be an ordinary kind of program. This is, if you've ever, and I was totally unfamiliar with Deliverance Ministries, but Pastor John Kyle is a man that's will speak to the larger evil that's going on the nation-state level. And this is going to be something that I think is, and also bring it down to the level of our homes and our families. So it's going to be a great program on Thursday.
Is he going to be straight and to the point?
Oh, yeah.
I love to the point.
He's great. Sheila, we're going to have to let you go. We're going to get to some other callers. God bless you. It's great hearing from you. You take care, okay?
You too. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. Now we're going to go to area code 253. 253. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann Report. Having some solo issues out here. All right, we're going to have to come back to you. That's pretty rough there. 916 area code. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann Report.
Whatever you want me to make it will be, because I don't know what.
916.
Specific. Hey guys.
Good evening.
Doug and Joe.
Were you listening to another show?
No, I was listening. I was listening to Tyrese Gibson, the actor, and he's telling people how to pray specific for things. I just was kind of dual, and I pray for Tyrese Gibson, the hearers of the show. He needs to clean up his mouth. But anyway, that's a side note. How are you guys doing?
Let me check.
Doing great.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
Amen. Well, God bless you, and I hear things were great at your conference. And let's see, I got a scripture, Jeremiah 25. And you guys have done this with me a few times. I want you to read Jeremiah 25:11 through 15.
Okay.
And when we read this, I want you to think about what we just came out of D-Day, 70 years, and I want the hearers to get this from the Word of God.
Okay, Jeremiah 25:11. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity, and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it a perpetual desolation. I will bring upon that land all my words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah hath prophesied against all the nations. For many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of them also. I will recompense them according to their deeds and according to their works of their own hands.
Huh.
How far do you want me to read?
And then 15.
15.
And
okay.
15.
For thus saith the Lord God of Israel unto me, take the wine cup of this my fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it.
You know, I know God. Go ahead.
Well, what's your no? I just want to. It's interesting that you equate D-Day, which was 70 years ago this past week, to this 70-year period referenced in Jeremiah. Now, can you justify?
This is what I'm trying to get the Holy Spirit to give us confirmation. God is a God of he's constant and he does repeat things. So obviously there's a 70-year cycle here. And if you look at 1944, we were the liberators, and look what happened to Patton. I think he was actually with God, on God's side, and they took him out. So I believe that as things look in Germany, you have a madman that needed Jesus, that was demon possessed, and there was a transference of devils that came into America. Because look who dropped the nuclear bomb that they were supposedly creating. And there's a whole teaching about Oppenheimer, and I won't get into that, about there was a curse that was set out, when that bomb went off. Well, who dropped the bomb? We did. So I look at this scripture. Go ahead.
If I can, real quick, I just want to read a quick few sentences from Matthew Henry's commentary on this, and his commentary is from the 1700s. It says, it shall be total. The whole land shall be a desolation, not only desolate, but desolation itself. Both city and country shall be laid waste, and the wealth of both be made prey of it. It shall be lasting, even perpetual desolations, that they shall continue so long in ruins, and after long waiting there shall appear so little prospect of relief, that everyone shall call it perpetual. This desolation shall be the ruin of their credit among their neighbors. It shall bury the honor in the dust, and shall make an astonishment and a hissing. Everyone will be amazed at them, and hiss them off the stage of action with just disgrace for deserting a God who would have been their protection, for impostors who would be certainly have been their destruction. If likewise be the ruin of all their comfort among themselves, it shall be a final period of all their joy. And it goes on.
It's interesting because I just really sense that this king of Babylon, which is obviously a spirit operating through Satan, God is getting ready to punish it. And if we're serving that system, what is going to happen to those individuals? And this is where I believe God is saying to America, I think there are going to be some great things. The exploits that we get to do are going to be with righteousness, and obviously the enemy is going to do exploits in flattery. So that's how you cut it, fruit or no fruit. A great fig or an ugly fig.
You're talking about the remnant now. Yeah, I
yes,
suspect.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
And folks, everyone listening to this program, I believe, if you're listening to this without aside from surveillance tactics, you are the remnant. Go ahead, sir.
Amen. No, absolutely. And verse 15 I found interesting because I was asking the Lord, I said, Yahweh, I said, Father, is this wine cup, is this the new wine that we hear about now, but was this prophesied in Jeremiah 25? And I believe it is. Take the wine cup of this fury at my hand and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And if you understand God, and if I've got iniquity in me, if you bring that full cup, it should bring me to repentance. And I think that's part of the exploits, guys. And so I'm excited. And I know you got some of the callers.
Well, thank you. That was a very interesting perspective that you offered, and we'll just toss that out to the listeners.
Yeah, and I've got one more quick scripture, Jeremiah 23:19 and 20. Behold, a whirlwind of the Lord has gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. The anger of the Lord shall not return until he has executed, until he has performed the thoughts of his heart in the latter days. Ye shall consider it perfectly.
And caller, how many times did George W. Bush, in his inauguration speech, and how many times did other elected officials cite the angel of the whirlwind subsequent to 9/11?
Yes.
Coincidence? I think not.
No, the Lord's getting ready. I'm excited because Yahweh. Let me tell you something. We're with Him, and no weapon that is formed against us shall prosper. And every time that rises up in condemnation or judgment towards us, we get to condemn. We get to judge. That's our heritage. And so, by the Holy Spirit, I ask, Lord, that you just touch this radio show. I just declare and decree your abundance and your commanded blessings and your benefits from Psalm 103 upon this ministry in King Jesus' name.
Amen, brother. Thank you, caller. God bless you.
Great call.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We love you too, and we love everyone listening to this program. And I want to say this because I did mention this earlier, and I just got an email saying or asking this question, folks. Michael Hastings, the journalist who was murdered, I believe it was a murder based on all of the research I've done.
Look, his car just blew up in the middle of the road. Okay.
Well,
the conspiracy.
Yeah, but there was a connection. Folks recall when Michael Hastings was involved in that motor vehicle incident, accident, explosion, whatever you want to call it. I believe it was murder, based on the evidence. But remember, he was working on a big story. Well, that big story. Don't forget, at the time that he was working, or at the time of his death, he had already interviewed the parents of Bo Bergdahl and had interviewed some of the people involved in Bergdahl's in his desertion. Yes. Now, here's, folks, carefully. I will say this: his wife and Rolling Stone magazine. I believe it was Rolling Stone.
Mm-hmm. That's who he was writing for, yeah.
Okay. They were going to do this expose on this big story he was working on. His wife and others said, no, it wasn't Bergdahl. It was John O. Brennan. It was an expose on John O. Brennan. I believe that to be the case, but I also believe that one of the trigger points that really got Hastings on the map was his meddling in the Bergdahl family situation. If you can, there are dots that need to be connected. I do believe that at the epicenter of the murder of Michael Hastings, as well as Breitbart and others, is none other than Muslim convert, accomplished Arabic speaker, and head of the Central Intelligence Agency, John O. Brennan.
I wanted to get some sleep tonight. That's so interesting that I'm going to have to really see what I can find on that. I mean, That's important. You know, when we see what happened with Breitbart announcing that he had this bombshell information that was going to come out on a certain day, which he subsequently died of that very morning, the information never came out.
And it never came out with Michael Hastings either.
Correct. Very suspicious. Moving on to the telephone lines here, 563. You're up next. 563, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Sean in the Midwest. I'm the cop who calls in sometimes. I kind of wanted to weigh in about the Nevada shooting.
Sure.
Oh, please, yes.
I guess, you know, from my point of view, being on the other side of the blue line, if you will, I think that it's awfully convenient, and I don't believe in coincidence or convenience, that this guy was at the Bundy Ranch and was kicked out by the Bundys. Then they just happened to interview this guy. So, you know, kind of wargaming things out in my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe they just didn't get the reaction that they wanted that day. So now here we are, what is it, a month removed from that, and now they'll do this, and, you know, they'll say the revolution's begun, and reportedly put down a Gadsden flag to give it that link. And then, of course, you know, they try and tie that in with white supremacist groups and whatnot. But I think a larger thing they're trying to maybe go for is to keep police from going towards the liberty patriot movement and thinking, and that's kind of why I think you saw CNN come out with the patriots or liberty movement people are more dangerous than Al-Qaeda now, when it's, I mean, 26 people killed over what, like a 10-year period, 12 years. I mean, in one day in Chicago, more people get shot than that. So I think it's to alienate police who are progressing towards that side, to alienate them, because nothing alienates policemen like other dead policemen.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe they will think then, what's that?
And federal officials in every agency as a whole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I say police, I mean, like, you know, law enforcement in general. And, I mean, it's such a tragedy that these two guys are killed, but sadly it's the world we live in that you need to think a little bit further beyond just the news headline and see, why are they throwing all these accusations on these people? Like, where did this guy come from? You know, and that kind of led me into another thing that I wanted to touch on really quick. Is it's related, but it's not. It's kind of more of a general theme. Is just situational awareness. As things get worse in whatever city, town you live in, wherever country you are, remaining situationally aware in any situation that you're in, whether you're at the store, whether you're like these two unfortunate guys who are at the pizza place having dinner, you don't know when something bad's going to happen. So, I mean, be looking around you, but don't just be looking. Actually see what's going on around you, because I'll guarantee you that when these people came in, there was some sort of tell that if they had been aware, they would have at least, you know, hopefully had a chance to defend themselves a little more than they could have. And same goes for the gentleman who was killed at the Walmart, who confronted one of the guys. We had a little blurb and briefing, I guess, you know, to law enforcement, but the guy confronted the male who had a gun, was walking into Walmart, and he had his concealed carry weapon, and he confronts that man, and the woman was pushing a shopping cart into Walmart like she was just shopping. She got around to the side of him and shot him in the head. So, you know, where there's one, there's two. Always look for the second. And I mean, you know, that's good whether you're talking about reading news headlines or you're a responsible citizen carrying a firearm and you're out shopping. And I mean, how much could have been avoided had he seen the woman or not allowed her to get behind him into a position of advantage? Unfortunately, when it comes into a situation like that, you just don't know. But who knows how many more people would have been killed had he not confronted those two right then and there.
That's a great point, and we did mention that that could have changed. Many more could have died, but as a police officer, Sean, are you? I mean, you've got the you have got to have some sort of a really. I would not want your job. I got to tell you that right out, and I'm sure.
Yeah, sometimes I don't want it too. So.
Yeah. Are you? What have you done, or what have you been told to do in terms of just increase your situational awareness, or is there anything more that in place that you're doing? Traveling in pairs,
in relation to this incident.
Yes. As a result of this.
I haven't really heard anything specifically. I think so far, other than just hey, keep your head on a swivel out there, all the time. Not for any specific type of person, but it's just an inherently dangerous job.
Right.
And you just never know. I mean, I saw a video the other day where a cop got his throat cut by a lady that she's just some lady the guy's arresting, and she cut his throat. So you just never know. And it's not to any. What I'm hearing so far isn't towards any specific group, but if I were to ever hear anything, I would definitely be the first to let you guys know.
All right, buddy.
Did you hear anything about the Canadian police that were killed last week? There were 5 shot, 3 killed.
I caught a story about that, but I really didn't have too much time to really get into it. So I really don't have anything that I could really comment on it. So.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering because there's an uptick, it seems, even from across the border in law enforcement being targeted here in certain instances, and definitely as being a law enforcement officer yourself, our prayers are with you, and we hope you remain safe.
Oh, yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I just think that it's, to reiterate my point, I think it's just kind of, you're going to see more of this violence against police and have it blamed against the liberty movement type, as the so-called media calls it, in a way to alienate policemen because, I mean, we're the boots on the ground and we're where it's at. So if they lose us, then that's a good chunk out.
We'll know that we are behind you. We are in support of police officers like yourself who understand what's going on, and we pray for you daily.
All right. Yeah, I won that book from you guys a couple weeks ago, so thanks a lot. I got that Prophecy of Future America. It's a great book, and if anybody's looking for anything good to read, I would highly recommend that. So.
Oh, great. Okay, you did get that then.
Yep. It took a little while, but I finally got it. So thank you very much.
That's right.
You guys have a great night and keep up the good work.
All right, buddy. Thank you. God bless, man.
All right.
Stay safe out there.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
I just want to say this, Joe, real quick. April 7th, 1991, friend Bruno Sobolewski, who was a police officer in Texas, was gunned down. A good friend of mine was shot 3 times and fatally wounded and died in the hospital hours later. And so I know what it is, at least in that respect, to lose a friend who was a police officer who died on duty, left a beautiful wife and children.
I've never, I do know a few people who are police officers, and thankfully that's never happened, but I do know some people who died in the line of combat in the Marines. And, dying in any form of service for your country, for the protection of others is, it's a hard thing, for family, friends. It's a hard thing for, everybody who has any investment. But, I would say that, the people who signed up to do that, they know the risks, and if they knew they were going to go, they probably wouldn't want to go any other way, but protecting somebody or saving a life or doing what they're called to do. But it is sad. And
yeah, but not like the police officers in Vegas or
no.
Man, that's just horrible. Wow.
No, but what I was saying is that, they, from my experience, is that they would lay down their life to save another in a heartbeat. And
absolutely.
That's what makes them, so brave and great people. I think we can get one more call here. We have 2 minutes. We can fit a 2-minute call in. We're going to go to, I think, country code 50. This might be out of the country.
Let's go for it. 2 minutes. We got it.
International call. You got 2 minutes.
Hello, is that me?
That's you.
Hey, Doug and Joe. This is Bob in Guatemala, and I listen to you guys as many times as much as my internet allows. I have 2 quick questions. Coming from Mexico, do they get screened by the pedophiles before they're transferred to the other locations? And the second question to that point is, why just the kids? Who's telling them what? And Doug, one other question completely aside, when you talk about those snacks, it drives us people who can't get them crazy, okay? Just want to let you know.
They are really good.
I don't want to hear about it.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Well, I'll tell you what. Somehow I should be able to. If you send me an email with your mailing address, somehow I'll get something to you. How's that?
I will. Let me tell you this: they would be eaten 14 times before they got the bulb. So.
Okay. Well, let me see what I can do with your questions, and you've actually closed out the program. But to answer your questions, obviously, the reason we have the children coming up here is upon specific, and people might not believe this, but it's on specific invitation by our government, including but not limited to Barack Obama. Their parents are up here.
You get the second foot in.
Yeah, that's right, and this is part of a larger plan, and that people are not understanding, and it's very nefarious. But they do go through this screening process. Oh yeah, the pedophiles. Yeah, good point, by the way. But the fact of the matter is, the message, the word of mouth gossip to the news media. Come to America with your child. You won't be turned away. So you've got Obama, his government, working with the Mexican government, working with Central America to bring up these children, South and Central America. And there's illegal use of executive orders to gut the immigration system. And look, he's talking about doing it more and more. So that's also to enforce the immigration laws, or to hold hostage Congress to pass the Immigration Reform Act. Hopefully that helps, sir.
Thank you so much, and God bless you guys and everything that you do. All your guests are wonderful. I love Steve Quayle and of course, Groover the other night were just fantastic.
He was
Henry
great.
sent me some books, and Steve too. So anyway, God bless you guys, and I pray that God just keeps you safe and protected from all the people that like for you not to be here right now.
Thank you, sir. God bless you, and stay safe in Guatemala, and enjoy your surroundings. That'll do it for us tonight, folks. Good night. That'll do it for us tonight, the 10th day of June 2014. Until tomorrow, God bless.
John Kyle will be with?
No,
Thursday.
Thursday. Tomorrow will be a more detailed layout of the news and analysis.
The stand rescheduling is really screwing me up. Thursday night, John Kyle. Tomorrow, more news and your calls. Until then, stay safe. Have a great night.
Good night.